Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Okay, let's start. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Agnanatimirandasya Gnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmritam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharini Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarini Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shivas Adi Gaura Bhakta Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare. Okay, so we're reading from 8.6. A beautiful verse. Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam tyajatyante kalevaram tam tam eva iti kaunteya sada tad bhava bhavitaha. Whatever state of being one remembers when he quits his body, O son of Kunti, that state he will attain without fail. State of being one remembers when he quits his body. The process of changing one's nature at the critical moment of death is here explained. A person who at the end of his life quits his body thinking of Krishna attains the transcendental nature of the Supreme Lord. But it is not true that a person who thinks of something other than Krishna attains the same transcendental state. This is a point we should note very carefully. How can one die in the proper state of mind? Maharaja Bharata, although great personality, thought of a deer at the end of his life, and so in his next life he was transferred into the body of a deer. Although as a deer he remembered his past activities, he had to accept that animal body. Of course, one's thoughts during the course of one's lives accumulate to influence one's thoughts at the moment of death. So this life creates one's next life. If in one's present life one lives in the mode of goodness and always thinks of Krishna, it is possible for one to remember Krishna at the end of one's life. That will help one be transferred to the transcendental nature of Krishna. If one is transcendently absorbed in Krishna's service, then his next body will be transcendental, spiritual, not material. Therefore, the chanting of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare is the best process for successfully changing one's state of being at the end of one's life. What do we say about this verse? Nothing new for all of us. We understand this. But we have to understand how difficult it is to actually remember. So one very important thing here, which is coming to my mind, is what is our attachment? See, we might be serving Krishna. Okay, we don't have to compare ourselves with other people outside who are engaged in sense enjoyment, etc., etc. Fortunately, somehow by mercy of Srila Prabhupada, the Guru, and Krishna, we are somehow trying to practice Krishna consciousness. But even though we are trying to practice Krishna consciousness, we still have attachments which are material in nature. So till the time we have material attachments, till that time we will not be able to remember Krishna at the time of death. Okay, so this is the secret. So we have to figure out what our material attachments are and disconnect ourselves from those And then, of course, based on what each of our attachments are, the way to disconnect or what to disconnect, how to disconnect, etc., will all maybe be different. But it is important that we disconnect. And we should also note that if we are very sincere, then Krishna himself mercifully creates situations to help us with the disconnection. Which means that there will be situations in our life which will kind of force us to become disconnected from that source of our attachment. But then when that happens, we have to recognize that this is Krishna, that it is his mercy because of it. And it will obviously come as a suffering for us, right? It's not like suddenly, today I'm sleeping thinking, okay, from tomorrow this anartha of mine should go, and then tomorrow morning I get up and that anartha is gone. It doesn't happen that way. Okay, because that if something like that happens by chance are in even Krishna's arrangement. Krishna wants it such that we will never even exercise free will again to desire that, right? Because see, problem is Krishna can create miracles right now, but then he still doesn't interfere with our free will. So suppose say Krishna has made it very easy for us, and he's done tathastu, and we got over some anartha automatically, magically. But then we should remember that we still have free will and we can again choose to fall down. So Krishna doesn't want that. So what Krishna does, Krishna creates such situations such that by our free will, we will say, okay, I am getting detached from this. So that the chance of us again falling down will be very, very bleak. Yeah, so this is a very important thing to understand. So it can happen very painlessly, but if it happens that way, we might also, kind of fall down from that situation. So little bit painful situation will be there for us to detach ourselves. But we have to recognize that it is Krishna's mercy. And Prabhupada is talking about Bharat Maharaj. Bharat Maharaj was in Bhava. We are still struggling with Anartha Nivrutti. So we have to understand, saying that if in case that was suppose that happens now, we will not be able to remember Krishna because we have so many attachments. We are still in Anartha. We're still amongst Anarthas. So we have to basically just detach ourselves from things around us, but not like become aloof. And this is also very important. Like today, for example, I had gone to one of our devotees' office for something. Then they do some printing work and all that. So then all the people who work along with him very enthusiastically came and they were talking and all that. So then, I just asked, okay, how is this printing machine work? How does it print? What are the technology, this, that, and all that? And they were so enthusiastic. They just, they explained, then they took me to the binding area, then cutting area, this, that. So they were happily engaging, and it's fine because at the end of the day, our interest is that, we should bring them to Krishna consciousness. Now, it's not that, okay, I go there and then I just sit, strap my mouth and just sit. Not becoming aloof, right? But at the same time, not getting affected. So that is important because, we can't say just detach ourselves so that, from tomorrow I will stop talking to everybody. No. We should not get affected by conversations, but we have to talk. Otherwise, how will people know who is a devotee? How can people appreciate what the mood of a devotee is? Mood of a devotee is, first, he has compassion. Second, so because he has compassion, then he'll say, oh, poor things. So they are not able to think of anything apart from sense gratification. Okay, maybe at this stage, maybe I have to talk to them in their language only. And at least they'll feel happy that I'm talking to them, and then slowly, steadily, as the jiva wants to decides to make progress, he or she will come to Krishna. Maybe I can pray for them, like this. Hmm. But it's not like we completely disconnect ourselves with others and not talk to people and all that. No. So we detach ourselves. We don't become attached to things such that because of those things, we become so absorbed that during our chanting, we are thinking about those things, or those things suddenly become more important than Krishna. So we don't think too much about, but we detach ourselves. But at the same time, we do our responsibility, and we be as normal as possible with the world around us, without getting affected. So Prabhupada is saying, if one is transcendently absorbed in Krishna's service, see, this absorbed is the word, right? If we are engaged, it's okay. It's one level. I am engaged in material work. I'm engaged in spiritual work. I'm absorbed in spiritual work. So we have to come to that absorbed state. Absorbed state means, like, basically we don't have time or interest for anything else. That might take some time for all of us, but if you come to that stage, then the next body will be transcendental. That Prabhupada is assuring here. So to become absorbed in Krishna's service, another way is, if you are engaged, busy with things, then, as much as possible chanting Hare Krishna. So the whole idea is, and another very important thing Prabhupada is saying here is, one, if in one's present life, one lives in the mode of goodness. So he's saying two things here, mode of goodness and always thinks of Krishna. He could have just said simply always thinks of Krishna. He's also saying mode of goodness, which means that we have to bring this also into practice in our life. So we have to see that in our life, we are as less as possible in passion and ignorance. There are verses in further chapters which talk about different modes and what are the different qualities in different modes, etc. So we should start recognizing mode of goodness and try to start living in that mode, which means that all our behavior, the way we do things, should be in the mode of goodness. And then also, parallelly, we should always think about Krishna, because we are not living a life of goodness because we just like that life of goodness. We are doing that because that should help us to think about Krishna, and Krishna, it pleases Krishna more than living in passion and ignorance. But this is the whole progress of, this is the bottom line for our whole progress in Krishna consciousness. We have to desire to make progress so that finally we get here. Ante Narayana Smriti, Ante Vapi Smaran Bhavam. Tejatyanti Kalevaram. Tejatyante Kalevaram. Any questions, thoughts? Okay, no thoughts. 8.7. Tasmat sarveshu kaleshu mamanusmarayutya cha mayarpita mano buddhirmamaiva evaishyasi asamshayaha. Therefore, Arjuna, you should always think of me. How? In what form? In the form of Krishna. And at the same time, carry out your prescribed duty. And for Arjuna, the prescribed duty was fighting. With your activities dedicated to me. Dedicated means arpita, offered to me. And your mind and intelligence fixed on me, you will attain me without doubt. So basically, you should always think of me, first thing, in the form of Krishna. At the same time, carry out your duty. Do your duty, at the same time keep thinking about Krishna all the time. How do we think about Krishna when we are doing all material activities? basically we'll depend on him in so many things in our life, because we are not independent and this material world is very difficult to call him miserable. So sometimes we might depend on him as grastas. We might seek his protection, his guidance, etc. Which is okay, which is not the pure state, but devotees always depend on Krishna. Whether they ask in something material or not, they are always dependent on Krishna. But for those who are engaged in karma, yoga, in doing work, prescribed duty, etc., we depend on Krishna and we think about him. We think about using the results in his service. We think about how to engage more in his service by fixing our mind and intelligence. So like this, basically what Krishna is saying here, bottom line is, you're working, but that work is not to distract you from me. That work is just so that it will help you keep your body and soul together. But your consciousness has to be in me. So Prabhupada is saying this instruction to Arjuna is very important for all men engaged in material activities. So those who are engaged in material activities. So if we are working, then we are engaged in material activities. How should we live? This is the verse for that. Lord does not say that one should give up his prescribed duties or engagements. One can continue them and at the same time think of Krishna by chanting Hare Krishna. This will free one from material contamination. How will it free one from material contamination? We will not think about using that money for sense gratification, etc., etc. So it will become free. And by chanting Hare Krishna, our nature also we will come to goodness. So our passionate and ignorant modes also will reduce. So we'll become free from material contamination. And when we are free from material contamination, then we can engage mind and intelligence in Krishna. I don't know if I've said this before, but I keep doing this test saying, for how much time can I concentrate on the lotus feet of Krishna? For example, Radha Madhav, right? So if I see Madhav's foot, lotus feet every time because it comes in our Kannada WhatsApp group for devotees sends every day. I look at it and then during the day I think, okay, can I now simply focus on Lord's lotus feet? Can I remain focused on that Lord's lotus feet for some time? But material contamination comes and disturbs. Suddenly some thought comes, something else comes. Then I realize, oh, still a lot of contamination. I can't be single-pointedly focused on thinking on the Lord's lotus feet. So, but as we continue to do chanting, then slowly and steadily we can become more fixed in this concentration, in this meditation. By chanting Krishna's names, one will be transferred to the Supreme Planet without a doubt. Yeah, this is the ultimate stage. By just calling Krishna's name, then we'll be in Goloka. But this is a very exalted. Prabhupada is taking us from, stuck in material activities to realization of Goloka by the process of chanting. I mean, it's a very high order. So bottom line is, we work, earn money, use that money for Krishna service, use that money to keep body and soul together, use that money to figure how to grow preaching, how to grow Krishna consciousness. So by doing all these things, we will continue to think of Krishna and slowly all this material contamination will go. And then we can actually, by chanting Krishna's names, we can get transferred to Krishna Loka. Okay, 8.8. Abhyasa yoga yuktena chetasa nanyagaminam paramam purusham divyam yati parthanu chintayan. He who meditates on me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, his mind constantly engaged in remembering me, undeviated from the path, is sure to reach me. Mind constantly engaged in remembering me, constantly engaged. How can we be constantly engaged in remembering Krishna? We can't do this by the process of dhyana. That is why we have to take the process of japa. In this verse, Lord Krishna stresses the importance of remembering him. One's memory of Krishna is revived by chanting the Mahamantra. By this practice of chanting and hearing the sound vibration, one's sound vibration of Supreme Lord, one's ear, tongue, and mind are engaged. So, see what we need to be doing when we are chanting. Ear, tongue, and mind are to be engaged. This mystic meditation, mystic, is very easy to practice. Prabhupada is saying it's very easy to practice. And it helps one attain the Supreme Lord. Purusham means enjoyer. All the living entities belong to the material energy of the Supreme Lord. They are in material contamination. They think themselves enjoyers, but they are not the Supreme Enjoyer. Here it is clearly stated that the Supreme Enjoyer is the Supreme Person of Godhead in his different manifestations and plenary expansions as Narayana Vasudeva. The devotee can constantly think of the object of worship, the Supreme Lord, in any of his features, Narayana, Krishna, Rama, etc., by chanting Hare Krishna. So it's not that Hare Krishna means only we have to think about Krishna. By chanting Hare Krishna, one can also think about Narayana. One can also think about Rama. This practice will purify him, and at the end of his life, due to his constant chanting, he will be transferred to the kingdom of God, whoever he likes, Ishtadevata. Yoga practices meditation on the super soul within. Similarly, by chanting Hare Krishna, one fixes his mind always on the Supreme Lord. The mind is fickle, and therefore it is necessary to engage the mind by force. Very, very important. We have to engage the mind by force, which means if the mind is going here and there, we have to forcefully bring it back to think of Krishna, to hear the holy name. One example often given is that of the caterpillar that thinks of becoming a butterfly and so is transformed into a butterfly in the same life. Similarly, if we constantly think of Krishna, it is certain that at the end of our lives, we shall have the same bodily constitution as Krishna. So chanting is important. Forcefully engaging the mind in hearing the mantra is important. And gradually, when we chant, we become so absorbed in the nama that we will actually think about Krishna. If we mechanically do chanting, then we will not be able to think about Krishna. But if we do chanting with little bit feeling also, then we can think about Krishna. So the mechanical chanting has to stop, meaning we have to have some feeling for Krishna. Oh, Krishna's name is not different from Krishna. So let me chant with love. So we should try and practice this. So we have to constantly engage in remembering Krishna, and that is only possible by constantly chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. That we can constantly chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, or we can constantly be engaged in Krishna's service. That will also give us remembrance of Krishna. Like for example, if we are hearing, then we know that we are hearing about Krishna. So like this. 8.9. Kavim Puranama Anushasitaram Anoraniyamsam Anusmaredyaha Sarvasya Dhataram Achintya Rupam Adityavarnam Tamasaparastat. One should meditate upon the Supreme Person. Now Krishna is saying, meditate. How should we meditate? We should meditate on the Supreme Person as the one who knows everything, as he who is the oldest, as he who is the controller, he who is the smaller than the smallest, maintainer of everything, beyond all material conception, inconceivable, and who is always a person. He is luminous like the sun and he is transcendental beyond this material nature. Okay, this is all too complicated. We simply think about Krishna in love. That's all. Right? We don't have to worry too much about oldest and inconceivable and and then when we think about Krishna slightly more deeply, then we know that he's inconceivable. We know that he's the controller. We know that he's smaller than the smallest. We know that he has all these attributes, but we don't have to think about Krishna based on his Aishwarya. This is actually not for Raganuga, as in this is for Vaidhi Bhakti. where devotees want to think about Krishna because of whatever Supreme Lord, because of his opulence. We want to just think about Krishna because he's sweet. He's the sweetest person. He has the best relationship to have. The process of thinking of the Supreme, that is Supreme, is mentioned in this verse. Foremost point is that he is not impersonal. One cannot meditate on something impersonal or void. That is very difficult. Process of thinking of Krishna, however, is very easy and is factually stated. Herein, first of all, Lord is a Purusha, person. In thinking of the person Rama and person Krishna, and whether one thinks of Rama or Krishna, what he is like is described in this verse. Lord is Kavi. He knows the past, present, future, and therefore knows everything. The oldest personality because he's the origin of everything. Everything is born of him. He's also supreme control of the universe and is the maintainer and instructor of humanity. He's smaller than the smallest. Living being is 1/10,000th part of tip of hair, but the Lord is so inconceivably small that he enters into the heart of this particle. So the Lord enters even the heart of the earth, the heart of the Atma, heart of this particle, not the. So there looks like there is something called heart of the Atma, not just heart of the body. So here Prabhupada is saying that Paramatma enters the heart of the particle. Therefore, he is called smaller than the smallest. As a supreme, he can enter into the atom and into the heart of the smallest and control him as the super soul. Although so small, he is still all-pervading and is maintaining everything. By him, all these planetary systems are sustained. We often wonder how these things, these big planets are floating in the air. It is stated here that the Supreme Lord, by his inconceivable energy, is sustaining all these big planets and systems of galaxies. The word Achintya is very significant in this connection. God's energy is beyond our conception, beyond our thinking jurisdiction, and is therefore called inconceivable Achintya. Who can argue this point? He pervades this material world and yet is beyond it. We cannot comprehend even this material world, which is insignificant compared to the spiritual world. So how can we comprehend what is beyond? Achintya means that which is beyond this material world, that which our argument, logic, and philosophical speculation cannot touch, that which is inconceivable. Therefore, intelligent persons avoiding useless argument and speculation should accept what is stated in the scriptures like the Vedas, Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, and follow the principles they set down. This will lead one to understanding about Krishna, Krishna's position, etc. So this is for people who want to think about Krishna as supreme, and who have to come to that stage, because otherwise they'll be stuck with being enamored by this material energy and thinking energy is supreme, etc. So for them, they have to come to this platform of accepting that Krishna is supreme, Krishna is a person, Krishna has everything in control, Krishna is the smaller than the smallest. But for devotees in slightly evolved in terms of going beyond just the Aishwarya of Krishna, then we think about Krishna in his personal form, in his sweetness, in the way he engages with his devotees, that he is Bhaktavatsala. All these things we'll think about. And it's very easy to then remain focused on Krishna. It's not very difficult. So for that, we have to hear about Krishna. We have to hear about his beautiful pastimes. We have to read Srimad Bhagavatam, about various other features of the Lord. Finally, come to the 10th canto, hear about how he enjoys with his devotees in Vrindavan. Develop an understanding of what the Lord's requirements are and how his various devotees serve him. And then we'll come to a platform thinking, okay, I want to serve Krishna in this platform. And we have to come to that platform. Today or tomorrow, we have to come to that platform. So we need to work on these things. It won't happen by itself, or it won't happen by chance. So we have to think about Krishna. Okay, so finally, Prayana kale manasa chalena bhaktya yukto yoga parena chaiva Ruvor madhye pranamavesha samyak satam param Purusham upaiti divyam. One who at the time of death fixes his life hair between the eyebrows and by the strength of yoga with an undeviating mind engages himself in remembering the Supreme Lord in full duration will certainly attain the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Prabhupada is explaining what this means. In this verse, it is clearly stated that at the time of death, the mind must be fixed in devotion to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Don't worry about the details about whether fixing life hair between eyebrows, this, that, and all that. Finally, the idea is that one has to engage in remembering Supreme Lord. However we do it, it doesn't matter. But the important part is devotion, full devotion. So one who is fixed in devotion will automatically think about the Supreme Lord. He will not be worried where my life hair is, whether it is fixed between my eyebrows or not, and all that. That is for yoga practitioners. So Prabhupada is saying here, for those practicing yoga, it is recommended that they raise the life hair between the eyebrows, Agna Chakra. The practice of Shat Chakra Yoga involving meditation on the 6 chakras is suggested here. A pure devotee does not practice such yoga, but because he is always engaged in Krishna consciousness, at death he can remember the Supreme Personality of Godhead by his grace. This is explained in verse 14 further. The particular use of the word yoga balena is significant in this verse because without practice of yoga, whether Shat Chakra Yoga or Bhakti Yoga, one cannot come to the transcendental state of being at the time of death. We'll be in the material state of being. That means that our mind will be materially engaged, not transcendentally. One cannot suddenly remember the Supreme Lord at death. One must have practiced some yoga, especially system of Bhakti Yoga. Since one's mind at death is very disturbed, one should practice transcendence through yoga during one's life, not at the time of exam. So we should have studied, prepared for the exam by practicing it throughout our life. Okay, so I'll stop here, 8.6 to 10. If anybody has anything to say, hope everybody is following. Hare Krishna.